John, thank you so much for doing this. Please decode what Keith Pelley had to say for us yesterday.
Not sure I can. But what I think between the lines you read is that we need a strong leader, maybe two strong leaders, and I'm trying to get out of the hockey department because I think that's an important message too. Because as you guys know, there's been lots of innuendo that Keith's sticking his nose into things, and he's denied it. And I think what's better for the franchise, and I think Keith understands this. What's best for the franchise is that he hires a president, he hires a general manager. Could be the same person, might be two guys, and then he gets back to being the CEO of a company that has 800 employees and is worth $15 billion.
And John, do you think he said enough as far as giving, like he could have said, we want a president and we want a general manager, or do you think he's just leaving it open? I mean, a lot of people were frustrated yesterday that he didn't say anything. He didn't leave them satisfied with any type of announcement. Do you think that's a fault of his, or do you think that's by design because it's not his job to make the decisions everyone's wanting?
Well, I don't think anybody wants Keith to make those decisions, Jay. I think they want somebody who has institutional knowledge of what goes on in the National Hockey League to make decisions like that. You know, I think we joke about this all the time. Everybody wants to play in the sandbox. It's because it's a great sandbox. And whether you're an owner or a CEO or a president, you know, you have an opinion about how the team should play and what should happen, and you can't help but give your 2 cents worth. By the way, if you're the owner, you have every right to do it because it's your money. But at the same time, you need people that can drive that bus on a daily basis and make sure it stays between the lines. And so that's what they need. They need somebody to be able to drive the bus and make this team successful. Keith cannot be that bus driver. Keith does not know enough about the game on a daily basis, even cap, all the analytics, you know, the eyeball test. He's a really good sports executive, but he's not a hockey guy. He's not. And that's okay. But now he's been charged with go find the guy that becomes the hockey guy. And we'll have to wait and see whether that can happen quickly or it's going to take time. By the way, I don't think, other than naming a person yesterday and then standing up and leaving and saying, this is the last time you're going to hear from me, I don't think anybody would be happy with anything that Keith said yesterday.
Sure. I'm surprised. I don't know. I thought you were going to come in here today and defend Keith Pelley. I just had that feel, but I don't know. Like I just, because I understand you, John.
I don't think I'm being critical. I don't think I'm being critical of Keith.
Yeah.
And this is where I think Keith is a pragmatic guy. Here's the one thing I can tell you about Keith, and I know him a little bit. Keith has worked his ass off in the last 30 days to figure out what's right and wrong with the franchise. You know, he talked about, you know, being data driven. Let me assure you that he has tried to find every piece of data to ask the question, what's wrong with the Toronto Maple Leafs? Who is to blame for what's going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs? And that's why there's a change in leadership. Last week, Brad went in and said, listen, if I'm a dead man walking, please get rid of me. I don't want to be a lame duck for another 30 days or 21 days. Just do it now. And so they did it, and give Brad credit for that, and give Keith credit for saying, you know what, you're right, and we'll do it now, and we can start whatever this is, rebuild, retool, reconstruct, you know, it can start soon, and that's exactly what has to happen. But nobody would be happy with anything Keith said yesterday, other than we're hiring Moses to change the system in Toronto, and life goes on.
Yeah, and what do you think is going to factor with Keith Pelley on deciding if you need a president of hockey operations or not?
I think it's who's available and who wants the job, and if they can be in agreement of what the future is. You know, if for instance, Jay, you walked in and applied for the job and said, first job I'm doing is I'm trading Austin Matthews, I'm trading William Nylander, Morgan Riley's out of town, and the people that Keith reports to, which includes Edward Rogers and Tony Staffieri, said, you know what, we agree, you've got the job. That's going to be the key to whoever gets hired. It has to be an agreement. There has to be a unanimous consent that the next 3 or 4 years have to go the way the corporation realizes they have to go. That's going to be a challenge. You know, there are going to be lots of guys that go into the office and interview with Keith and then meet Edward and Tony and say exactly what they want to hear, but don't believe it. And they're going to have to find a way to decide whether those truths and the lies are separated and find the right person for it. I think there's probably 5 or 6 people out there that can do this job, do it well, reinvent the front office of the Maple Leafs, because I think that was the one thing that came out of yesterday. I think there has to be a reinvention of how the Maple Leafs run their operation and see what happens.
John, to me, this keeps going back to Brandon Pridham. This could be his time, no? Like, is there a name that sticks out for you right away if we're looking at the GM first, or no? No?
Not a chance. No.
Why do you feel that way?
Not a chance. Because I like Brandon Pridham. My office at the NHL office was beside his in Toronto. So we spent a lot of time together. I still view him as a friend, but this is a high-profile job. This is someone who has to manage the outside noise. You know, this is, you know, there are some people built for the stage, and there's some people built for backstage. As I've said to many people, every army needs soldiers, and as good as Brandon Pridham is, he's a great soldier. I'm not sure he's a general. And so from that perspective, I would be shocked if he was even on the list.
Now, one of the things that I did like about that press conference is he acknowledged the fact that the coaching position is not his to make. That's not his job. Now, whoever does come in, and whatever their role is on paper, the next manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, do you think there's any chance Craig Berube continues to coach this team?
No, I don't. I think it speaks to a lot of what Keith talked about yesterday about being driven by data. You know, they have a staff of 12 people in their analytics department at MLSE. 12. But where is the data going? Where is the information being used? I don't see that information being used as much as it should be by the coaches. And I'm not an analytics guy. I'm not. But there are certain things and tendencies that you can use with numbers that can help you prepare your team and prepare your coaching philosophy for games. I just don't think the way the game is going, you know, I would describe, I think that the next coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs has to be a modern day coach. I like Spencer Carberry. I like Ryan Warsofsky in San Jose. I think there are a bunch of guys. And by the way, you know, an old dog like Paul Maurice changed. Paul Maurice was an old style coach, and Paul Maurice changed over the years, which is amazing when you consider now he's only the second coach to have 2,000 games under his belt, and now he's got 2 Stanley Cups for it. But it was because he realized that he had to change with the game. And so that's important. Modern day coaching is important. The way, you know, this organization has been run over the years, you know, it's just not fire and brimstone anymore and north-south hockey anymore. Athletes are different now, Jay. You know that. You've seen it. You've witnessed it much better than I have. But athletes are
Mm-hmm.
different, and you have to talk to them differently, and you have to justify things differently, and that's really where the pendulum has swung in all sports, but particularly the game of hockey.
Just to clarify, too, on my thoughts on Pridham, I felt like a hierarchy, where you have a president, then a GM, Brandon Pridham, if that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify that because I tend to agree with you. What can you tell us about the name Mike Gillis, who's been a person of interest the last couple of days here?
Wow. Haven't heard that name in a while.
I know, right?
I like Mike Gillis. I like Mike. If you look at track records, and what he did in Vancouver, he rebuilt an organization, and they got to the Stanley Cup final and got within one game of winning the cup. Mike thinks outside the box. Mike believes in the science of sports. I think that when you look at potential names, you would be remiss not to consider a guy like Mike Gillis, simply because there has to be new discussions constantly, and the desire to learn constantly. And that's not a knock at Brad, but Mike Gillis. I've been in meetings with Mike Gillis over the years, particularly my time at Sportsnet, and what Mike Gillis does, he challenges you and he makes you think, and that's important when you're trying to build an organization.
Now, there's been a lot of organizations in the National Hockey League who are looking for that kind of thing if Gillis checks all the boxes. Do you have any information on where he's been the last 10 years and why hasn't someone else snatched him up?
Mike is one of the most headstrong people I've ever met in my life. And what I would describe Mike as is if he had an opportunity to work and somebody made the phone call and said, Mike, here's the job description, and it had 10 points on it, Jay, and he liked 7 of them and didn't like 3 of them, he'd say, well, I'm interested in the job, but let's change the 3 that I don't like. So when you're comfortable in your own skin, and you believe in what you're doing, you can say, I want the perfect job. And I would suspect over the last decade, since Mike has been out of the game on a regular basis, because he has, he's been on the periphery. He's done some work for the Players Association over the last decade or so as well. But I would suspect that Mike has said, if I'm going to take any job in the game, and I think he learned this in Vancouver, that it has to be exactly the perfect job. And that includes authority, that includes flexibility, that includes to bring have the right to bring anybody in that he wants. And really, it would take a great deal of fortitude for a company like MLSE, a company like Rogers, to give anyone the keys to the castle like that. But if they want to win, if they want to change the culture here, that might be exactly what they have to do, whether it be for Mike Gillis or someone else.
So Gillis's name's out there. I was chuckling yesterday, minutes after the Leafs news comes out. Jim Nill's got a contract extension, which we think was agreed upon months ago to this point. But Doug Armstrong, he's been linked to this job for a multitude of years. What's your feel? Is there any chance that Doug Armstrong comes to Toronto?
Well, he's under contract. He is going to be the president of the Blues starting this summer. First of all, are we sure that Doug is interested in the job? If he is, I would not be surprised that they find a way to talk to Mr. Stillman in St. Louis and say, Tom, we'd like permission to talk to Doug for president and general manager. And see what Mr. Stillman's reaction is. I do know in the past that Stillman has not allowed Doug to talk to other teams for similar positions of president/GM because he was under contract. If you look at the Blues situation, they're going to start next year with a rookie general manager. Wouldn't it be great to have a visionary and a veteran like Armstrong around? But that said, Doug has always had a great challenge and loves challenges, has built a championship team, has never really had the resources that MLSE has in order to do it. I think that, again, if you're creating a list, I think Doug Armstrong's name has to be on that list, and you have to go down that path at least to discuss it with him if there's a chance that it could happen.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.